Sanity is expensive. Prologue. The only way to deceive you was first to deceive myself, to breathe the lie so deeply it became my oxygen, to bend my reflection in the mirror until even my own eyes swore it was true. I stitched falsehood into my skin, rewrote the script of my heartbeat, convinced the walls they weren't closing in, only folding kindly like arms around a child. But every lie whispered inward is a knife turned gently, and madness is not a storm, but 1,000 paper cuts until silence bleeds. To trick you, I had to break me, unravel my psyche thread by thread until the loom of reason was nothing but tangled string. Insanity, then, is not a monster in the dark. It is the slow persuasion that the monster is me. And to protect you from its shadow, I must vanish into it completely. If I convinced myself the monster was not real, then I convinced myself the monster was me. And only then did the deception become possible. Chapter 1. Was it a dream? The first sound I remember that morning was the hum. Not the refrigerator, not the pipes, but something softer, stranger, like a choir warming its throat behind the walls. I lay there in the half-dark of my bedroom, my pulse thudding against the pillow, listening. It had begun again. The hum was always the first sign. The second would come later, the rearrangement. Small things shifting places in my apartment as though the night had walked through my rooms while I slept. I did not leave the apartment that morning, not because I feared the man outside, but because I feared myself. Every shadow, every subtle movement at the corner of my eye whispered secrets I didn't want to hear. I told myself it was vigilance, caution, survival, but there was something sharper underneath, an itch beneath my skull, a trembling that could not be calmed. I checked the locks again. 3 times. Each time, the click of the deadbolt sounded unusually loud, accusatory. And then came the small, almost imperceptible noises, the tap of shoes on the floor, a cough, a sigh. My apartment had always had creaks, always had draft, but now every ordinary sound became a signal. Every vibration a message meant only for me. And then I saw him, a shadow in the corner of the living room, standing still, observing. The figure wore a dark coat, hat low over the eyes, nothing visible but the outline. I blinked, he was gone. And yet I could still feel his gaze pressing against my back. I realized with a sickening certainty that I had never actually seen him walk in, never heard a door open, but still, I knew he had been there. I knew it because my own reflection in the window, blurred by condensation, seemed sharper, stranger than usual. And in that reflection, I thought I saw my own eyes staring back, cold, unfamiliar, accusing. The notes came next, small, anonymous, written in a hand I couldn't recognize. You're lying to yourself. You can't hide from the truth. Look closer. I tore them up, crumpled them into fists, but they never really disappeared. Each message seemed to echo inside me, lodged behind my ribs, pressing against my lungs. I told myself it was the stress, the exhaustion, the late nights, that I was overthinking. But the part of me that had always whispered, the part that watched and waited quietly, knew something else, something dangerous. I could not trust myself, and as I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to force my hands to stop trembling, I realized that the figure I had seen, the man outside, the watcher in the shadows, was not a stranger at all. It was me, or at least some fragment of me I had never wanted to meet. And the question that clawed at my throat was simple and terrible. If the enemy is inside me, how can I ever win? The alarm clock shattered the room like a gunshot. I bolted upright, sweat-soaked sheets clinging to my skin. Morning sunlight sliced through the blinds, unforgiving, ordinary. Work. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. I dragged myself out of bed, dress shirt wrinkled from restless sleep, tie loosely knotted like a noose. The apartment, once a cage of imagined watchers, now felt merely small, suffocating in a mundane way. I worked as a technician at a call center, a job I had chosen because it promised stability, because rent had to be paid and bills had to be balanced, a job I hated more than I could ever say. As I walked to the bus stop, I thought of my boss, Mr. Grayson, a man with the charm of a rusty gear and the subtlety of a hammer, the kind of man who picked at weaknesses not to correct them, but to enjoy the sound of someone else breaking. And of course, there was Marissa, the secretary, sitting behind her pristine desk, always polite, always smiling, but unreachable. I loved her from afar, always keeping my admiration locked away in some safe corner of my heart. Inferior, I would never say a word. The bus groaned to a stop. My reflection in the window caught me mid-frown, and for a heartbeat I swore I saw another figure behind me. Tall, dark coat, hat low, a phantom finger pointing at me, blinking, shaking my head.
Shaking my head. Empty bus. Just me. The day began.
"Morning, Harris," said Dana, the co-worker from the next cubicle, leaning over with her coffee cup. "You look like you wrestled with a ghost before breakfast." I chuckled weakly. Something like that. A flash in my peripheral vision. The figure. Him again. Mirroring me perfectly, just at the edge of the office, watching. Dana noticed my distraction. "You okay?" I shook my head. "Yeah, just long night." She raised an eyebrow, but smiled. "Well, try not to let the night follow you in here. Mr. Grayson's in a mood already." "Ah, Grayson." By mid-morning, he found me at my desk. "Harris, these numbers are off again. How hard is it to follow a simple script?" His eyes flicked over my report like a hawk measuring a rabbit. "Do you want me to start walking you through step 1 again, or are we trying for some kind of new comedy routine?" I forced a laugh. "Step 1 sounds perfect, sir." A chill ran down my spine. Out of the corner of my eye, there he was, the figure, peering over the cubicle walls, finger twitching at me as if to warn or accuse, or maybe just watch. I blinked. "Mr. Grayson cleared his throat. "Harris?" "Sorry," I said. "Just thinking." The figure dissolved. Dana's voice interrupted my spiral. "You okay, Harris?" "Yes. Totally fine," I lied, pressing my fingers to my temples. The rest of the day was a series of mirrors and doubles. Every time I spoke with the coworker, saw Marissa pass by, or checked the computer monitor, I caught glimpses of him, my phantom self. The closer I got to noticing, the quicker he vanished, leaving me questioning whether my eyes were lying or my mind. By the time the workday ended, I could barely tell reality from hallucination. The walk home was quieter, the streets littered with the early chill of evening. My shoulders slumped under the weight of imagined eyes and the real exhaustion of an unloved job. I almost didn't notice him at first. A scruffy homeless man sitting on the curb, feeding crumbs to the pigeons. His eyes, though, were sharp, piercing. "You look heavy," he said, voice calm but knowing. "Not just from work, son. Heavy from inside." I stopped. "What do you mean?" He gestured to the emptiness around us. "All this," he said. "You carry it like it's solid. But it isn't. It's in here." He tapped his temple. "Mental health. You ever think about it? Not just how tired you are, but what's chewing at your mind when nobody's watching?" I swallowed. "I don't know." He smiled faintly. "Most don't. But the trick is noticing. Catching it before it notices you. Otherwise," his eyes flicked to the shadows behind me, though nothing was there. "Otherwise, it will follow you, and you'll be too busy living a ghost story inside your own head to see it coming." I nodded slowly, unsure whether he meant me or the figure I imagined, or maybe both. As I walked the rest of the way home, his words settled uneasily in my chest. Heavy. True. Frightening. Chapter 3. The Pool. I dreamed of a park. Sunlight poured over a small playground, the kind of brightness that makes everything look softer, warmer. I was a boy again, running barefoot across the grass, laughter spilling from my chest like a river. The swings creaked, the slides glimmered, and the air smelled of cut grass and rain-soaked soil. A montage unfolded. Vivid. Impossible, shifting like watercolors bleeding together. I was climbing trees with scraped knees, learning to ride my first bike, winning my first Little League game, holding my mother's hand for the first time in a way that felt sacred. Each moment was sharp, colored, real, yet slipping away the instant I tried to hold it. And then, abrupt, the bully. He shoved me hard into the pool at the community center that smelled of chlorine and wet carpet. I gasped, swallowed water, the panic rising like a tide, and as my head broke the surface, the world twisted. The boy dissolved, and I became myself. Adult, wet hair clinging to my skull, chest tight with the familiar weight of worry and exhaustion. A tap, light, deliberate, on my shoulder. I turned. My phantom self, pale, hollow-eyed, sickly but deliberate, fingers pressed against my shoulder like a gentle command. Wake up! I jolted awake, alarm clock screaming across the nightstand. Blinking, heart pounding, I wrestled my blanket from my body and swung my legs to the floor. The ordinary day awaited. By mid-morning, the world hummed with routine. The bus smelled of stale coffee, the office buzzed with printers and chatter, and the phantom appeared again. This time, leaning against a cubicle, pale and silent. I glimpsed him and froze, but instead of panic, a small, disorienting smile crept across his lips. The day passed in a blur of work, phone calls, and murmured conversations. Every once in a while, I'd catch him in a peripheral glance. Sometimes I even thought I heard a soft laugh, like the wind through a crack in the window, but no one else reacted. By evening, I found myself at my parents' house, Friday night dinner. Mum fussing over the salad, Dad slicing meat like he was narrating an invisible play, my sister teasing me endlessly about something trivial. "Did you ever stop playing video games?" she asked, smirking. "Never," I said, forcing a laugh. My phantom self appeared on the edge of my vision again, leaning casually against the doorway, smiling. He made no sound at first, but then a faint, airy chuckle, barely audible, like it was caught in the air vents. It startled me at first. "Not real," I whispered under my breath, and yet peace settled over me. The phantom didn't accuse, didn't judge, just observed, entertained. I laughed along with my sister's teasing, nodded at my parents' chatter, passed the potatoes. They noticed nothing, or at least nothing overt. But once Dad tilted his head and frowned. "You okay, son?" "Just tired, Dad." "Long day," I replied. They returned to their conversation, oblivious. The phantom's smile lingered at the edge of my mind. I felt strangely safe. Strange, but safe. And maybe that was the beginning. Not the end of the hallucinations, not the end of the fractures, but the first time I realized that living with them didn't have to be a fight. Maybe I could exist alongside them, even thrive, even if no one else saw. The streets were quiet as I walked home, the glow of streetlights painting puddles gold. The evening had settled into a rhythm of ordinary life. Neighbors walking dogs, distant laughter from open windows. I breathed in the chill air, trying to shake off the phantom smiles that had accompanied me all day. Then I heard it, yelling, sharp, bitter, the kind of anger that shatters walls as easily as bones. I slowed, turning the corner, and saw a couple, disheveled, shadows deep beneath their eyes, fists clenched in desperation. "Stop it!" the woman screamed. I froze, helpless. Something primal held me in place, and then the man struck her. Everything exploded, not in the street, but inside me. The world blurred. The street, the lights, the shouting, they all dissolved, and I was elsewhere. I was a boy again, little feet pounding the pavement, scraped knees, the shrill laughter of someone older and crueler than me. The memory, the trauma, unfolded in vivid, crushing detail. Fists shouting, fear, a body flung to the ground. The weight of helplessness. The smell of rain-soaked cement, the sharp sting of shame. I gasped, caught in it, trapped. And then, as suddenly as it came, it ended. I blinked. The street returned. Puddles, lamplight, the distant murmur of normality. And yet I was standing at my apartment door. How I had gotten there, I could not tell. My legs trembled. My hands were damp, sticky with sweat, or maybe something else I could not name. I shook my head, trying to steady my thoughts, and fumbled for my keys. The door swung open, and there he was. Not the pale, mischievous phantom of earlier, but a darker, heavier version. A creature that could have been me, but not. Taller, broader, cloaked in shadow that seemed to swallow the air around it. Eyes glimmering red in the dim light of the hallway. A smile twisted across his face, sharp and cruel. The air in the apartment grew icy. My breath fogged before my eyes. I stepped in cautiously, and the door slammed shut behind me with a thunderous finality that had no source. The figure's gaze bored into me, and a low, guttural voice filled the room, seeming to come from everywhere at once.
"You think you're strong. You think you've survived. Pathetic.
Memories tore through me, childhood failures, the mockery of peers, moments of humiliation and pain I had tried to bury. Every cut, every scar, every whispered insult from the past was spoken aloud, sharpened, twisted into a weapon.
You've wasted your life. Coward, you hide behind your routines, your pathetic little job. Marissa doesn't notice you because she sees through your lies. Your mother, your father, even your own sister laughs at the coward you pretend not to be. You are nothing.
The room seemed to spin. I sank to my knees, covering my ears as if the sound could be smothered, could be made to stop.
You are weak, pathetic, a ghost of the boy who drowned in his own shame.
The voice escalated, layering over itself until it became a chorus of every humiliation, every fear, every moment of self-loathing I had ever experienced. I screamed, clawed at my ears, shook my head, begged, trembling, "Stop, please, stop." The figure leaned closer, eyes gleaming, grin widening. His presence was a weight pressing down on my chest, on my skull, my soul, and then blackness. I woke gasping. Tangled in my sheets, the metallic taste of fear heavy on my tongue. Sunlight sliced through the blinds, harmless and ordinary, but I couldn't shake the memory of those eyes, the grin, the weight pressing against my chest. The apartment was silent. Too silent. I ran a hand over my face, trying to scrub away the residue of terror, but it lingered in my bones. In the kitchen, a coffee cup waited like a promise of normality, but even that felt fragile, unreal. The bus ride to work was a blur. Every reflection in the windows caught my attention. Every shadow flickering at the edge of vision felt like an intruder. I shook my head, muttering under my breath, "It's not real. Not real. Not real." And yet, at the office, the phantom returned, not fully formed like the last one, but glimpses, faint, fleeting, of a figure leaning against cubicles mirrored my movements, smiling. Sometimes a whisper floated in the periphery of my hearing. A chuckle, a hiss, a soft mockery. Every time my pulse spiked, but the normalcy of co-workers, phones ringing, printers clattering, grounded me, just barely. Dana leaned over her cubicle. "Harris, you okay? You look different." I forced a smile. "Just tired. Long week." The figure lurked in the corner of my vision. I blinked. Dana's face remained constant. I shook my head. He wasn't there. He couldn't be. Mr. Grayson appeared, clipboard in hand. "Harris, these reports are late again. Care to explain, or shall I show you how this works step by step?" "Again?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. Right away." I felt the presence again, taller this time, looming behind Grayson. Or was it behind me? The edges of reality felt frayed, like watercolor running into wet paper. Marissa passed by my cubicle, smiling politely. For a heartbeat, I thought she glanced at him too, my dark twin, but when I blinked, she was just herself, the phantom gone. The day crawled, each interaction a battle between what was real and what my mind insisted on inserting into the world. Each smile, each laugh, each mundane conversation became a test of will. By the time I left the office, night had settled in again. The street smelled of rain and exhaust, and then I saw him, not fleeting this time, not subtle, standing across the street, hands in his pockets, smile unnerving in its familiarity. I froze. He didn't move, didn't speak. But somehow I could feel him judging, waiting, amused. I shook my head violently. He wasn't there. He wasn't real. And yet, when I unlocked my apartment door that night, the air inside felt heavier, colder, as if he had followed me. For the first time, I wondered, what if he wasn't just a hallucination? No, that was absurd. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that my mind had become a theater, and every shadow, every whisper, every smile, real or imagined, was part of the show. And for the first time, I found myself almost okay with it.